congrats on 300 episodes. Congrats.
Thanks so very much. It means I'm getting old.
It means also the show is as great as ever. When did you first have this idea placed in front of you or want to do something like Real Sports?
Yes, probably in the early 90s. Seth Abraham was head of HBO Sports, and we'd had a few conversations about trying this. At the time, I was hosting the Today Show, and frankly, didn't even know if they'd let me do this. But it worked out. We tried it as a one-off to see if there was an appetite for it, and it was kind of well-received. And then we did 2 of them for a year, and after a couple of years, we started doing a monthly, and here we are, 28 years later, we're still doing it. Well,
obviously, everybody wants to put their best foot forward in a new endeavor. So what was the story that you knew, okay, if we're going to do this, or I'm going to try this, I'm going to want to make it as good as possible. We want to come out of the gate.
We kind of got lucky right out of the box, Rich, to be honest. I went back and I looked at, it was called to my attention, the first show. And that first show, oddly enough, it was kind of funny how much things have not changed. The first show, our lead story was about baseball's labor crisis.
I don't mean to laugh, but that's funny.
And back then, if you recall, I know you were a baby at the time, yes. But they wound up with a strike-shortened season. It was a 144-game season.
Right.
And that was our lead story, and then we also had a story about the staid culture of Augusta National that the late great Frank Deford referred to as American Singapore. And we had Billy Crystal talking about his Yankee memorabilia. We had a lot of things going for us, and it was well received. So we got fortunate.
Well, it wasn't just the stories and then the writing and the producing. Obviously, those are great, but the storytellers as well. You just mentioned Frank Deford and Susie Schuster, who you know because she worked as a producer on Real Sports for a couple of years, and she still talks about those moments as being some of the best of her professional career. And one of her favorite moments was producing a piece for Frank Deford when he was going after the IOC, which, as you know, was worthy of going after.
They've been a frequent target of ours.
I know.
They're kind of easy to shoot at, frankly. They do so many things wrong, and they're in bed with all the worst characters on the planet, and they all have the worst motives, and they're greedy and corrupt to boot. But other than that, they're great.
I know. But she talks about Frank Deford, the late Frank Deford. You got a good Frank Deford story, how he got involved in this? Anything you want to share about Frank?
Frank and I had been friends for a long time. We were kind of kindred spirits in that we were about the same age. We both kind of looked at sports askance. We thought the stories were much more interesting than the scores, and we both had a fondness for writing, and we used to for a long time bounce ideas off each other. So when this first got going, he was kind of the first name we thought of, and Frank was not only a great writer and a great storyteller, but he was a terrific friend, and I still miss him dearly. I had the privilege of doing his eulogy. I miss Frank every day.
What do you want folks to maybe know about? Again, I know you have so many terrific correspondents, and I'm kind of lingering on him just because his words were almost as finely appointed as his dress. You know,
I mean, he was an eccentric dresser. He was the only guy I knew, thank God, who wore an ascot and looked good in it. No, he did. And his color of choice, he always liked splashy colors. His color of choice was purple. Mm-hmm. He used to show up sometimes in the oddest, I want to say they're shoes, but they were more like slippers. And he'd sometimes have polka dot socks on. He was, how do I say, a foppish dresser.
Nice. That is a good one.
I think Susan will relate to that.
Yeah.
He was a foppish dresser. But Frank was a wonderful guy. I used to bounce commentaries off of him. I'd call him up the night before and said, Frank, give this thing a look. Tell me what you think. And he just had a great eye. He was a terrific storyteller.
Right.
He's one of a lot we've had over the years. I was telling somebody yesterday, it was kind of funny to go back and look at people who've been our correspondents for a time. We had Spike Lee as a correspondent for a time. We have David Frost as a correspondent. We had Leslie Visser. We had James Brown. We've had Mary Carrillo for a long time. We've been very, very fortunate. We really have. We've had a lot of good storytellers. Armin Katayan, a few others. We've had a great diverse cast of characters. I've been a lucky man.
I appreciate. Oh yeah. Last thing too is everyone wants to know, and you hear this all the time. I'll ask it anyway. What are you writing down on that yellow legal pad?
You know what? I'll probably say it on my deathbed. I never talk about it. I really don't. Everybody asks, and I actually am writing something, but I just have gotten in the habit of never answering it, so I'm not going to start now.
I wanted the exclusive, Brian.
I get it. You know what? Come to the deathbed ceremony.
No, come on now. We can't end like that. But so, do you have like are they archived? Do you have like the first episode of Legal Pad?
I'm not a keeper of that kind of stuff. You know, my God, you know it's going to be 50 years in September. I'll have been in the broadcast business. If I kept every note from every interview I've ever done, I wouldn't have a place to live. So
it's like you don't write down Bernie Goldberg so full of it. I can't wait to ask him when we come out of it. Like that doesn't. That's not what it is?
It's not that I haven't written that. I probably didn't at the time.
Okay. Very good, Bryant. Well, you'll just keep us guessing. Thanks for the call.
Rich, it's always a pleasure.
Right back at you. That's the great Bryant Gumbel right here with 300 episodes of Real Sports in the books on The Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.